Alright guys, so in this video we are going to take a look at the new firmware release for the Legends Ultimate that came out yesterday morning, but as well as that, thanks to an independent developer, we've been able to start seeing some ports come on over to the cabinet. Now these are a little bit different than your typical UCE files, so in this video I'm going to show you guys how to get that game up and running. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Alright, so we are going to start with the firmware release and we're going to go over this fairly quickly. The big things that we have seen in this release is now we have improved parental controls in the settings. So if you shoot over to your settings section and you take a peek at the parental control options, you're actually going to have the opportunity here to create sub accounts. Now you do need an ArcadeNet account for this to have your main account, but you will essentially create a sub account, and once that account's been created, you can then toggle specific features on and off. For example, you can turn off the BYOG function, and you can also turn off any of your paid services like the ArcadeNet services. And then on top of that, it also gives you the ability to filter out specific games and make them blacklisted, so that way if there's a game that may not be specifically appropriate for certain children in the house, you can actually blacklist it so that way they won't be visible when you've got this parental control account active. Once you've got that active and you take a peek at your main menu, you'll notice that any of the features that you had toggled off, for example BYOG or ArcadeNet, they'll actually disappear and won't be visible. And additionally, right beside the ArcadeNet login name, you're going to see a green shield, and that's going to indicate that you are now in a parental controlled account. To get out of this, you simply go back into your settings, back into the parental control settings, and then you will just select the main account. You will then have to input your password. The next new highlight that we've gotten is that they've added the Facebook support to the live streaming feature. Now I do want to mention this will only work with the new Facebook Live producer account. If you are still running on their old system, you do need to upgrade. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, if the URL says facebook.com/live/producer, you're good. But if it says facebook.com/live/create, you are on the old version. And if you don't have a prompt to try the new live producer feature, then you are going to have to contact Facebook support directly and have them enable it for you. But in terms of getting it set up, it's very much like we would have done with our YouTube account, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. If you're not familiar with how to do that, I will leave a link in the description below to a video that I showed how to get your YouTube live streaming set up. But that's more or less it. There are a few other small features, for example, removing the high-pitched noise in burger time, but that is more or less it for the firmware release. Now we're going to jump into something that is really exciting. I had an independent developer by the name of Wildcoder who is on Discord, and he's been talking to me for quite a few weeks about some of the projects he's working on, optimizing specific cores for the Legends Ultimate machine, as well as working on getting ports in. Now he was actually able to get the port called Reminiscence up and running on the Legends Ultimate. And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's essentially the game Flashback from way back in the 90s. 1992 I think was the official release. And the game is very similar to Another World. It's made by Delphine Studios, and it's actually a really fun game. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how to get this up and running. Now the first thing that we have to do is download the UCE file, and the important thing to note is that this is completely legal to distribute. This does not actually contain the game nor have the data files for it. This is essentially just the emulator built into the UCE, which again is totally fine. We're going to go ahead and download this. We're going to do a direct download, and we're going to want to save this directly onto our USB drive. So I've got my USB drive right over here. We're going to create a new folder and we're going to name it ports. Once that's done, we're going to save it inside of that folder, and I can actually show you guys that ports folder is now here, and when we look inside, we've got our UCE file ready to go. And now that it's located on our USB drive, you could technically take your USB drive out, pop it into your arcade machine, and you will see that under the BYOG section in the add-ons tool, you're going to be able to see that the port of Flashback is visible, but you won't be able to play it. If you click on it, it'll just kick you right back out to your main menu. What we need to do is add the actual game files. And I'm going to stress that you need to either purchase the game from GOG, which I'm going to leave links in the description to, or you can find it some other way, which would be up to you. Now, I've got the actual GOG game, so I'm going to show you guys how to add that in if you had that installed on your PC. The first thing that we're going to need to do is go to the root of our USB drive because we have to create a directory for those games. This UCE file is going to look in very specific folders on the USB drive in order to get that game data. So we need to build that structure so it knows exactly where to look. First thing that we're going to need to do is create a content folder. Now I've pre-created all my folders, but you're going to need to create the new folders. So you'd hit create new folder and you're going to label it content and you're going to leave it all lowercase. Then once we've got that there, we're going to open it up and we need to create another new folder and we're going to label it as ports, P-O-R-T-S. Once that's done, again, we're going to jump into that folder and we're going to create another folder and we're going to call this one the name of the game, which is Flashback. We need to label this with a capital F at the beginning and the rest is lowercase. Once we open up that folder, this is where all of our game data is going to go. Now I'm going to show you guys where to get that game data if you've got Flashback already installed from GOG. But again, if you found it some other way, this is going to be up to you to find the directory on where it was installed. Additionally, you should be able to use the original DOS game data or the Amiga game data, but I'm not going to show you guys where or how to get that. If that's something you're familiar with, then you can go that route as well. So we're going to go ahead and kick this over to the side. And the next thing that we have to do is open up another file explorer. So I'm going to get that open and set right over here. We're going to jump into our C drive. And because as you can see, I do have other GOG games, they're going to have their own folder. We're going to double click on that and we're going to need to locate our Flashback folder, which is right over here. And then we need to go into the flashback_data folder. And then there is a folder called streaming assets. We're going to double click on that. And as you can see, these are all the files that I transferred onto the USB drive. Now I'm not 100% certain if you need these files here or if you only need the data folder, but I did copy everything over just to be safe. So that's what I would recommend you guys do as well. Now it doesn't take long to transfer them over. They're all relatively small files, only takes about 10 or so seconds. But once it's done transferring, you're more or less done and you're ready to give this a shot. But what we're going to do now is grab our USB drive and pop it into the arcade machine. Okay, so here we are on the main screen of our arcade machine. So now we just need to move over to our BYOG section so we have access to our add-on games plugin. Now that we've got that loaded, you will notice on the left-hand side we do have a folder called ports, and when we click on that, we will have the Flashback game visible, ready to go. We're going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to get this thing up and running. Now there's a couple things that I do want to mention about this emulator. It does skip the main menu and jumps you directly into the game. This is a work in progress emulator and it's not 100% complete, but it is definitely playable. So if you're not concerned about the main menu, you can jump into this and get started right away. In terms of our button mapping, we've got our joystick, which is going to be your left, right, and down, and then up is also going to act as jump, but what the developer has gone ahead and done is he's also mapped the C button to act as jump too. Now, it's important to note you cannot jump while you're running, so you do have to let go of the joystick when you press the C button or the up button to jump. And the next thing that I want to mention is the A button is going to act as your weapon button and the B button is going to act as your action. So A is going to pull your weapon out, B is going to fire that weapon. The X button on the control deck is going to be our use button, and the Y button on the control deck is going to double as our inventory button, as well as skipping the cutscenes. But that's more or less it, guys. This is a really fun game to play. It's very challenging. So if you're looking for a game that's going to test your limits, this is a very good game to try. But that's more or less all I've got for you guys in this video. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comment section below. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Wildcoder, the developer over on Discord. He put a ton of work into this, and it's really cool to see some of these things starting to make their way over to the Legends Ultimate Arcade. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.